Let me take you back 6 years ago. This is where Alex and Sarah's story begins. It all started innocently enough, at a friend's party. Picture this: music playing softly in the background, laughter filling the room, and people chatting over drinks. That's where Alex met Sarah. Sarah was, well, she was everything Alex had ever wanted. She had an amazing laugh, one of those infectious laughs that could light up an entire room. Her eyes sparkled with life, and there was something about her energy that drew Alex in immediately. She seemed spontaneous, free-spirited, like someone who embraced life wholeheartedly. And Alex? He couldn't resist getting to know her better. They hit it off almost instantly. Conversations between them flowed effortlessly, like water running down a stream. Hours would pass without either of them noticing. Within months, they were inseparable. Alex was convinced Sarah was the one. In hindsight, he realized he might have been blinded by love, or maybe he just saw what he wanted to see. In the early days of their marriage, life seemed perfect. They bought a small house together, a cozy place they dreamed of turning into their forever home. Mornings were filled with coffee and conversations about the future. They laughed, planned vacations, and even talked about starting a family someday. Everything felt so right. But here's the thing about perfection. It's fragile. It doesn't take much for cracks to appear. At first, the signs were subtle, easy to brush off. Sarah started working late more often. She'd come home tired, barely speaking to Alex, and go straight to bed. At first, Alex didn't think much of it. Work can be stressful, after all, and he wanted to be supportive. Then came the cancellations. Their weekend plans? Canceled. Sarah said she needed time to rest or catch up on work, but soon, Alex noticed something else: her phone. It was always glued to her hand. Messages came in at all hours of the day and night. When Alex asked her about it, she dismissed it. Just work, she'd say. At first, Alex believed her. Why wouldn't he? There was no reason not to trust her. But as time went on, the distance between them grew. Emotionally, they felt like strangers living under the same roof. One night, about a year into their marriage, Alex decided to confront her. "Sarah," he began, his voice hesitant, "is everything okay between us? You seem distant." She looked at him, her face expressionless. "Everything's fine, Alex. You're imagining things." But Alex wasn't imagining things. Something was wrong, and he didn't know how to fix it. He tried harder, planned surprises, arranged weekend getaways, but nothing brought them back to where they used to be. It was as though Sarah had checked out emotionally. No matter what Alex did, he couldn't reach her. As time passed, Alex started feeling like he was the only one trying. It was exhausting. Days turned into weeks, and the emotional gap widened. Then came the lies. Little white lies at first. For instance, Sarah would tell Alex she was going out with friends. But when he called one of them to check in, they had no idea what he was talking about. Or she'd claim she was working late. But Alex would drive by her office only to find the building dark. Alex didn't want to believe Sarah was lying to him, but the evidence kept piling up. Eventually, he confronted her one evening. "Sarah, I know you're not being honest with me. Where are you really going when you say you're working late? Who are you texting all the time?" Her reaction shocked him. Instead of explaining, she exploded. "How dare you accuse me of lying?" she shouted. "I work hard to keep this house running, and this is how you repay me, by questioning my every move." Alex was stunned. He hadn't expected her to get so defensive. Worse still, she twisted the situation, making him feel like he was the problem, like he was paranoid for simply asking questions. After that fight, Alex felt more lost than ever. Was he imagining things? Was he being unreasonable? The truth, however, has a way of surfacing, even when you don't want to see it. One night, Sarah forgot to take her phone when she left for the store. It buzzed on the kitchen counter, and curiosity got the better of Alex. He knew it was wrong, but at that point, he felt like he had no other choice. He opened her messages. What he found shattered him. Texts from someone named David. Personal, intimate texts, far from anything work-related. Alex's heart sank. He didn't confront her right away. Instead, he watched her more closely over the next few days. He noticed how she smiled when a message came in, how she rushed to leave the room when her phone rang. It all made sense now. The late nights, the lies, the coldness. Sarah was having an affair. When Alex finally confronted her, it wasn't dramatic. There was no yelling, no screaming. He simply asked, "Who is David?" Her face went pale. She stammered, trying to come up with an excuse, but it was too late. The damage was done. "I'm sorry, Alex," she whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." Alex stood there, stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The woman he loved so deeply, the one he had built his life around, had betrayed him. He wanted to scream, to cry, to ask her how she could do this to him. But instead, he just felt numb. Sarah tried to explain, saying she had felt trapped in their marriage, that she didn't know how to tell him she was unhappy. But none of it mattered. The trust was broken, and there was no going back. They tried counseling, but it didn't help. Sarah had checked out of the marriage long before her affair started, and Alex was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered heart. In the end, they divorced. It was painful, but it was the only option. Alex couldn't stay in a marriage where he constantly questioned whether he was enough, whether he could trust her. Looking back, Alex wished he had seen the signs sooner. Maybe he could have done something to save their marriage. Or maybe it was doomed from the start. He didn't know. All he knew was that love isn't enough if there's no trust, no communication. Let me take you deeper into Alex's story, the part that changed everything. As I mentioned earlier, Alex and Sarah's marriage started to crumble slowly. At first, it was easy to ignore the signs, but as time went on, those cracks widened into chasms. Sarah began working late more often. She'd come home exhausted, barely speaking to Alex, and retreat straight to bed. Initially, Alex didn't think much of it. He understood that work could be stressful, and he wanted to support her. After all, isn't that what a good partner does? But then came the cancellations. Their weekend plans, dinners, movie nights, hikes, they were all canceled. "I need time to rest," Sarah would say, or "I have too much work to catch up on." Alex tried not to overthink it, but something felt off. It was around this time that Alex noticed her phone. It was always in her hand, buzzing constantly with messages at all hours of the day and night. When Alex asked her about it, she brushed it off. "Just work stuff," she'd say. At first, Alex believed her. Why wouldn't he? They had built their lives together. Trust was supposed to be the foundation of their relationship. But as the weeks turned into months, the emotional distance between them grew. It felt like they were living in the same house but existing in separate worlds. One night, about a year into their marriage, Alex decided to confront her. "Sarah," he began hesitantly, "is everything okay between us? You seem distant." She looked at him, her face blank, and replied, "Everything's fine, Alex. You're imagining things." But Alex wasn't imagining things. Something was wrong, and he didn't know how to fix it. He tried harder, planned surprises, arranged weekend getaways, but nothing seemed to bridge the gap. It was as though Sarah had emotionally checked out. No matter what Alex did, he couldn't reach her. As time passed, Alex started feeling like he was the only one putting effort into the marriage. It was exhausting. There were days when he felt like he was walking on eggshells, afraid that saying the wrong thing would push her further away. But the more he tried, the colder she became. Then came the lies, small ones at first. For instance, Sarah would tell Alex she was going out with friends, but when he called one of them to check in, they had no idea what he was talking about. Or she'd claim she had to work late, but Alex drove by her office only to find the building dark. Alex didn't want to believe Sarah was lying to him. He wanted to trust her, but the evidence kept piling up. Eventually, he confronted her one evening. "Sarah, I know you're not being honest with me. Where are you really going when you say you're working late? Who are you texting all the time?" Her reaction shocked him. She exploded. "How dare you accuse me of lying?" she shouted. "I work hard to keep this house running, and this is how you repay me, by questioning my every move." Alex was stunned. He hadn't expected her to get so defensive. Worse still, she twisted the situation, making him feel like he was the problem, like he was paranoid for simply asking questions. After that fight, Alex felt more lost than ever. Was he imagining things? Was he being unreasonable? The truth, however, has a way of surfacing, even when you don't want to see it. One night, Sarah forgot to take her phone with her when she left for the store. It buzzed on the kitchen counter, and curiosity got the better of Alex. He knew it was wrong, but at that point, he felt like he had no other choice. He opened her messages. What he found shattered him. Texts from someone named David. Personal, intimate texts, far from anything work-related. Alex didn't confront her right away. Instead, he watched her more closely over the next few days. He noticed how she smiled when a message came in, how she rushed to leave the room when her phone rang. It all made sense now. The late nights, the lies, the coldness. Sarah was having an affair. When Alex finally confronted her, it wasn't dramatic. There was no yelling, no screaming. He simply asked, "Who is David?" Her face went pale. She stammered, trying to come up with an excuse, but it was too late. The damage was done. "I'm sorry, Alex," she whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." Alex stood there, stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The woman he loved so deeply, the one he had built his life around, had betrayed him. He wanted to scream, to cry, to ask her how she could do this to him. But instead, he just felt numb. Sarah tried to explain, saying she had felt trapped in their marriage, that she didn't know how to tell him she was unhappy. But none of it mattered. The trust was broken, and there was no going back. They tried counseling, but it didn't help. Sarah had checked out of the marriage long before her affair started, and Alex was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered heart. In the end, they divorced. It was painful, but it was the only option. Alex couldn't stay in a marriage where he constantly questioned whether he was enough, whether he could trust her. Looking back, Alex wished he had seen the signs sooner. Maybe he could have done something to save their marriage, or maybe it was doomed from the start. He didn't know. All he knew was that love isn't enough if there's no trust, no communication. After the divorce, Alex's life felt like a puzzle missing half its pieces. He was lost, broken, and unsure how to move forward. Let me walk you through this part of his journey, how he began to heal, rediscover himself, and eventually open his heart again. The first few weeks after the split were some of the hardest days of Alex's life. Every quiet moment was filled with doubts and questions. What went wrong? Why didn't I see it coming? Was there something fundamentally wrong with me that drove Sarah into someone else's arms? These thoughts haunted him day and night. Sleep became a distant memory. Alex would wake up in the middle of the night, his mind racing as he replayed every moment of their relationship, trying to pinpoint where things started to fall apart. During the day, he threw himself into work, taking on more projects and working late just to avoid going home to the emptiness of his apartment. It helped, to an extent. At least while he was busy, he didn't have to think about Sarah. But the moment he stopped, the loneliness crept back in. One evening, a couple of months after the divorce, Alex ran into Sarah at a grocery store. It wasn't planned, and neither of them expected it. Alex was standing by the produce section, staring blankly at some apples, when Sarah turned the corner. The encounter was awkward, to say the least. They exchanged small talk, the kind you have with an old acquaintance you haven't seen in years, not with someone you once planned a life with. "How have you been?" Sarah asked, her voice cautious. Alex shrugged. Taking it one day at a time." She nodded, biting her lip like she wanted to say something else but didn't know how to. Alex didn't have the energy for a real conversation, so he made up an excuse and left. As he walked out of the store, he couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah had moved on. Maybe she was still with David. Maybe she wasn't. But the fact that he still cared bothered him. He didn't want to care. She had hurt him, and yet here he was, still thinking about her. It wasn't until Alex talked to his close friend Mike that he began to see things more clearly. Mike and Alex had known each other since college, and Mike had been Alex's rock through the whole ordeal. One night over beers, Mike gave Alex the tough love he needed. "Alex," Mike said, looking him dead in the eye, "you need to stop punishing yourself over this. You didn't make her cheat. You didn't make her lie. That's on her. You did everything you could to save that marriage." Alex wanted to argue, but deep down he knew Mike was right. He had tried. Maybe he had been naive, but he wasn't to blame for Sarah's choices. Accepting that truth took time. The guilt and doubt had become habits, a toxic cycle he couldn't break. Around this time, Alex started seeing a therapist. He wasn't really sure what he hoped to get out of it, but he figured talking to someone might help, and it did. Slowly, Alex began to realize that the end of his marriage, as painful as it was, didn't define him. It was a chapter, one that he had to close to move forward. He learned to forgive himself for not being able to fix everything. Some things can't be fixed. Some things just end, and that's okay. As the months went by, Alex started to find himself again. He reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies he had neglected during his marriage, and focused on building a life that was just his. Not theirs, not hers, but his. One of those hobbies was photography, something he had always wanted to do but never had the time for. He also went hiking more often, exploring places he had always meant to visit but never did because Sarah wasn't interested. Slowly but surely, Alex began to heal. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Alex was at a coffee shop working on some emails when a woman approached him. She had kind eyes, dark hair pulled into a loose bun, and a warm smile that instantly put him at ease. "Excuse me," she said, holding up a book. "I couldn't help but notice you're reading the same book as me." Alex looked down at his copy of The Alchemist and smiled. Great minds think alike, I guess. They ended up chatting for a while, talking about books, life, and everything in between. Her name was Emily. There was something about her. Maybe it was her kindness or her genuine interest in what he had to say. But for the first time in a long time, Alex felt a spark of hope. Over the next few weeks, Alex and Emily kept running into each other at the same coffee shop. Each time their conversations grew a little longer, a little deeper. Alex found himself looking forward to those moments, something he hadn't experienced since the early days of his relationship with Sarah. Eventually, Alex asked Emily out for dinner, and to his surprise, she said yes. They had a great time, and as the evening ended, Alex realized something important. He was ready to open up again, not necessarily to fall in love, but to let someone new into his life. For so long, he had been holding on to the pain of the past, afraid to move on. But sitting there with Emily, he realized that it was okay to start over. It was okay to hope again. Their relationship didn't blossom overnight. It was slow and cautious. Alex was still healing, still learning to trust again, and Emily understood that. She didn't push him, and for the first time, Alex felt like he was with someone who saw him for who he was, flaws and all. In time, Alex let go of the anger he had towards Sarah. He stopped blaming her and, more importantly, stopped blaming himself. Some relationships aren't meant to last forever, and that's not a failure. It's just life. Sarah and Alex had their time, and while it ended badly, it taught Alex lessons he wouldn't trade for anything. One evening, months into his relationship with Emily, Sarah came up in conversation. They were at Alex's apartment, curled up on the couch watching a movie. During a quiet moment, Emily turned to him and asked, "Do you ever talk to her, Sarah?" Alex shook his head. "No, not since the divorce. Why?" Emily shrugged. "Just curious. I was wondering if you ever got closure." Alex thought about it for a moment. Closure was something he had thought about a lot after the divorce. For a long time, he had wanted answers, answers that Sarah couldn't or wouldn't give him. He wanted to know why she cheated, why she didn't fight for their marriage, why she let it fall apart without so much as a real explanation. But now, sitting there with Emily, Alex realized something important. "I don't think I need closure from her," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully. "I've spent so much time trying to understand why things happened the way they did. But maybe it's not about getting answers from her. Maybe it's about accepting that sometimes things just end, and that's okay." Emily smiled, her eyes soft. "I think that's a really healthy way to look at it." And it was. For the first time, Alex felt like he didn't need Sarah's validation or an apology. He didn't need her to explain herself because no explanation would ever fully heal the wounds she had left. Healing had to come from within him. He had to let go of the need to understand every detail of what had gone wrong and just accept that it had. Life moves forward, whether we want it to or not. With Emily by his side, Alex finally felt ready to face whatever came next. After Emily's cancer went into remission, Alex and Emily celebrated their second chance at life. They had faced one of the toughest battles together, and now they were ready to rebuild. Not just their lives, but also their dreams for the future. Let me take you through this part of their journey, the moments of joy, growth, and renewed hope. The months following Emily's recovery were filled with gratitude. Every sunrise felt like a gift. Every laugh shared between them carried deeper meaning. They didn't rush back into their old routines immediately. Instead, they took time to savor the present moment, something Emily had always believed in deeply. One evening, as they sat on the porch of their home, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emily turned to Alex with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she began softly, "I've been thinking about us, about what we want moving forward." Alex raised an eyebrow, curious. "What do you mean?" Emily smiled shyly. "I think I'm ready for more, for us to take that next step, whatever that looks like. I love you, and I want to build a life with you." Her words caught Alex off guard, not because he didn't feel the same way, but because he hadn't realized how ready he was for that next chapter. Since Sarah, he had avoided thinking too far ahead, afraid of repeating past mistakes or setting himself up for disappointment. But now, sitting beside Emily, looking into her eyes filled with love and trust, Alex realized something important. He was ready to open his heart fully again to take that risk. "I love you too, Emily," Alex said, his voice steady, "and I'm ready to build that life with you." It wasn't a grand proposal or a dramatic gesture. There were no fireworks or sweeping declarations. But in that quiet moment, Alex knew his journey of healing had come full circle. He had gone from being a broken man struggling to understand the ruins of his marriage to someone who had rebuilt his life piece by piece with the help of someone who truly saw him. The future no longer felt daunting. It was something Alex looked forward to with Emily by his side. Whatever came next, they would face it together, openly, honestly, and with the lessons of the past firmly behind them. Life with Emily unfolded in ways Alex never expected. After that autumn day in the park, they didn't rush into any big decisions. Instead, they continued to grow together, taking things slowly and savoring every moment. For the first time in a long time, Alex wasn't in a hurry. He had learned that patience was key in a relationship, and Emily and he embodied that philosophy perfectly. About a year and a half into their relationship, Alex and Emily decided to move in together. The process was both exciting and nerve-wracking, as moving in with someone often is. You learn things about each other that you might not have noticed before, little quirks and habits that can either bring you closer or drive you mad. Emily was neat and organized, traits that put Alex's bachelor-style living to shame. He was more of a throw-it-where-it-fits kind of guy. At first, there were minor clashes, like when Alex left dishes in the sink for too long, or when Emily rearranged his books alphabetically, which, to Alex's surprise, actually made finding things easier. But these were small issues, and they found ways to navigate them together. It wasn't about perfection. It was about compromise, about learning to live with each other's flaws and differences. One evening, after unpacking the last of the boxes, they collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but happy. The apartment still didn't quite feel like home yet, but it was starting to. "Do you ever think about the future?" Alex asked Emily, his voice soft in the dimly lit living room. Emily looked at him, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Of course I think about it all the time. Why?" Alex hesitated for a moment, unsure how to express the thoughts swirling in his head. He had spent so much of his life afraid of the future, afraid of what it held, especially after everything that had happened with Sarah. But now, with Emily, the future didn't seem so daunting anymore. "I guess I'm just happy," Alex said finally, feeling a little foolish for stating something so simple. "For the first time in a long time, I'm not scared of what's next. I don't feel like I'm trying to fix something or fill a void. I'm just happy." Emily's smile widened, and she leaned over, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm happy too, Alex, more than I've been in a long time." They sat there in comfortable silence, listening to the soft hum of the city outside their window. The night felt peaceful, like the calm after a long storm. And in that moment, Alex realized just how far he had come. From the man who had once felt so broken and lost to someone who had found stability, love, and purpose again. One evening, about a year after Alex and Emily had moved into their new home, life threw them another curveball. It was something neither of them could have anticipated, but it tested their strength, resilience, and love in ways they never imagined. Let me take you through this part of their journey, the hardest challenge they faced together. Alex came home from work to find Emily sitting at the dining room table staring at a letter in her hands. Her face was pale, and there was a heaviness in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. "Hey," Alex said, dropping his bag by the door and walking over to her. "Everything okay?" Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she handed him the letter, her fingers trembling slightly. Alex unfolded it and read the first few lines. His heart sank. It was from the hospital, routine test results for Emily's checkup, but something had come back abnormal. They wanted her to come in for further testing. "I'm sure it's nothing," Emily said quickly, trying to put on a brave face. "Probably just a mistake. These things happen all the time, right?" But Alex could hear the fear in her voice. He could see it in the way her hands gripped the edge of the table tightly. In that moment, all the happiness and stability they had built together felt suddenly fragile. "We'll go together," Alex said, sitting down beside her and taking her hands in his. "We'll figure this out." The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, tests, and endless waiting. The waiting was the worst part. Every phone call, every email felt like a ticking clock, counting down to something they couldn't control. Emily tried to stay positive, but Alex could see the cracks in her armor. For the first time since they'd been together, he felt helpless. He couldn't fix this. He couldn't protect her from what was coming. Then the news came, cancer. It wasn't what they had expected, but there it was. The doctor spoke in calm clinical terms, explaining the treatment options, the prognosis, and the road ahead. But all Alex could hear was the word cancer echoing in his mind, drowning out everything else. Emily was quiet during the drive home. She stared out the window, her hands resting limply in her lap. Alex didn't know what to say. What do you say when the person you love most in the world is facing something like that? When they got home, Emily went straight to bed. Alex followed her, sitting on the edge of the mattress, unsure if she wanted to talk or be alone. Finally, after what felt like hours, she spoke. "I'm scared, Alex." Her voice was small, and it broke something inside him to hear her sound so vulnerable, so unlike the strong, fearless woman he had fallen in love with. "I am too," Alex admitted, feeling the weight of those words settle between them. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, neither of them knowing what the future held. But one thing was certain, whatever happened, they would face it together. The months that followed were some of the hardest of Alex's life. Emily started chemotherapy, and the side effects hit her hard. She lost weight. Her hair, her energy. There were days when she could barely get out of bed, days when she was too sick to eat or even talk. It was heartbreaking to see her like that. This vibrant, full-of-life woman reduced to someone who had to fight just to make it through the day. But through it all, Emily never gave up. Even on her worst days, she would look at Alex with that same quiet determination and say, "We'll get through this." And Alex believed her. He had to because the alternative was too painful to even consider. Their friends and family rallied around them, offering support in any way they could. Alex's parents, who lived a few hours away, would come to help out whenever possible. Emily's sister Katie practically moved in with them during the roughest weeks, and having her there made a world of difference. But even with all the support, it was a battle they fought alone in the quiet moments behind closed doors. There were nights when Alex would lie awake, listening to Emily's soft breathing beside him, and wonder if they would ever get their old life back. The life they had built together, full of hope and dreams for the future, now seemed like a distant memory. But then he would remember the promise he had made to her, that they would face this together. And he knew he couldn't let himself fall apart, not when she needed him to be strong. As the months went on, there were small victories. The treatments, though brutal, started to show signs of working. Emily's doctors were cautiously optimistic, and slowly she began to regain some of her strength. It was a long, grueling process, but Emily was a fighter, and bit by bit, she started to come back to Alex. One afternoon, as they sat in the garden watching the flowers bloom, Emily turned to Alex with a tired but genuine smile. "I think I'm starting to feel like myself again," she said softly. Alex squeezed her hand, his heart swelling with relief. "I never doubted you for a second." She laughed, a weak but beautiful sound that Alex hadn't heard in far too long. And in that moment, he knew that no matter what happened, they would make it through. They had already survived so much together, and he was ready to keep fighting for as long as it took. Months later, after what felt like an eternity, Emily went in for her final round of tests. The results were what they had been praying for: remission. The cancer was gone. Though the doctors warned them that there was always a chance it could come back, for now, they could breathe again. They could live again. It wasn't the end of the story, but it was a new beginning, a second chance at the life they had almost lost. That evening, as they sat on the porch of their home watching the sun set over the horizon, Emily leaned her head on Alex's shoulder and whispered, "We made it, didn't we?" Alex wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close, and smiled. "Yeah, we did." In that quiet moment, Alex realized something important. Life was never going to be perfect. It would always have its struggles, its heartbreaks, its challenges. But with Emily by his side, he knew they could face whatever came their way. Because love wasn't just about the good times. It was about standing together when things got hard, about choosing each other over and over again, no matter how tough the road became. Let me bring this story to a close. A story of love, loss, betrayal, healing, and ultimately, resilience. Alex's journey with Sarah taught him hard lessons about trust, communication, and the fragility of relationships. But it was his journey with Emily that showed him the true meaning of love, not just in the happy moments, but in the challenges they faced together. The battle against cancer tested Alex and Emily in ways they never imagined. It wasn't easy, far from it. There were days when hope felt like a distant dream, days when fear threatened to consume them both. But through it all, they stood side by side, choosing each other over and over again, and that made all the difference. When Emily whispered, "We made it, didn't we?" as they watched the sunset on their porch, Alex realized something profound. Life is unpredictable, messy, and often painful. It doesn't follow a script or adhere to our plans. But what makes life beautiful isn't perfection. It's the people who walk beside us through the storms, holding our hands and reminding us that we're not alone. For Alex, Emily became that person. She didn't just see him for who he was, she believed in who he could be. Together, they built a life rooted in honesty, patience, and mutual respect. They didn't rush into anything. They took their time, savoring every moment, cherishing the small joys that life offered. But let's not forget the lessons Alex learned along the way. His marriage to Sarah ended because of broken trust and unspoken struggles. At the time, it felt like the end of the world. But looking back, Alex understood that sometimes endings are necessary for new beginnings. Without the pain of his past, he might never have appreciated the depth of the love he found with Emily. Healing isn't linear, though. It's messy and nonlinear, full of ups and downs. For Alex, therapy helped him unpack the guilt and self-blame he carried after the divorce. Talking to Mike gave him perspective, and meeting Emily reminded him that love isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace, even if it comes with risks. One of the most important lessons Alex learned was forgiveness. Not just forgiving Sarah, but also forgiving himself. Holding on to anger and regret only weighed him down. Letting go allowed him to move forward, to open his heart to someone new. And then there was Emily's outlook on life, shaped by her own losses and struggles. Her belief in living fully and being present rubbed off on Alex. He started appreciating the little things, the quiet mornings, the laughter-filled evenings, the shared glances that said more than words ever could. Their relationship wasn't without its challenges. Moving in together brought its own set of adjustments. Alex's laid-back approach clashed with Emily's organized nature at times, but instead of letting those differences drive them apart, they learned to compromise, to accept each other's quirks and imperfections, because that's what real love is. It's not about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections you can live with and grow alongside. Even the unexpected meeting with Sarah had its purpose. It wasn't about closure or reconciliation. It was about acknowledging the past, accepting it, and leaving it behind. When Alex walked away from that cafe, he knew he had finally let go of the lingering resentment he had carried for so long. He wasn't the same man who had once felt betrayed and broken. He was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next. As for Emily, her battle with cancer changed them both. It forced them to confront their fears, to lean on each other in ways they hadn't before. It reminded them how precious life is, how fleeting and fragile. But it also strengthened their bond. They weren't just partners, they were teammates, fighting for the same goal, a future together. In the end, Alex realized that love isn't just about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard. It's about listening, supporting, and choosing each other no matter what. So here's the takeaway from Alex's story. Life will throw curveballs. Relationships will test you. There will be moments when you feel lost, broken, or unsure if you'll ever find your way back. But healing is possible. Love is possible. And sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. Thank you for joining me today as we explored this emotional tale. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Keep practicing your English. And remember, you've got this.